That thing was fading right through there. Welcome here, guys, to another Guitareo live lesson. Today we're talking about 3-note per string scales.
We are.
A little bit of something that I'm not super comfortable with, which excites me because I think I might learn something too.
The older I get, the more comfortable I become with it, but it's something I'm constantly working on. So.
Right. So 3-note per string scales are, I'm guessing, exactly how they sound. 3 notes per string as you move up or down the string.
That's all there is to it, man.
Nailed it.
And things are a lot less complicated than I initially thought they were, because when I had it explained to me, it was not very good.
Oh, okay.
So it took me a long time to realize that, hey, it's not that much to this, even though it looks really overwhelming.
It does, especially when you first take a look at like a fretboard later.
Yeah, it's like, there's no way. Goodbye.
Exactly. So make sure, guys, you download the PDF that follows along. Right, there's a PDF, and then there's also the jam track that we just played over.
Yep, and all the jam track is, I just wanted to come up with something that was fun, kind of rocky, and it goes through a diatonic progression in the key of G major, so you can take this G major scale that we're going to work with, and then the 3-note per string fragments, and work them all over the fretboard. Kind of like I was noodling there, trying to weave some of that stuff in. It's probably overplaying, but that's okay. It got my point across. But if you're into rock and fast licks and stuff like that, you have to learn 3-note per string scales. And it's not only just a type scale, but it's a way of navigating the fretboard too. So,
as somebody who's primarily a pentatonic player, it does feel a little bit unnatural getting into that 3-note instead of 2-note per string feel.
It's very asymmetrical feeling, but at the same time, as I'll show you, it's very symmetrical if you think about it in different ways. So the first page of the PDF is every note in the key of G major. And it looks ridiculous. And this is something you would see like in the 70s or 80s when you open up a guitar instructional book and it says, here, learn these skills. You're like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah,
I did this kind of backwards of what we would normally do. I started very complicated and we're going to whittle this down to make it really simple and accessible for you. Because like if you like playing fast or very connected scalar lick, it's gonna allow you to do that with only thinking of a few or several patterns, as opposed to thinking of this one huge diagram on the fretboard that's very intimidating, right?
Right.
So don't be discouraged after looking at that first diagram. Go to the next page, go to the second page, and right there you're gonna have a 3-note per string 6-1 G major scale diagram. And this is still a little bit intimidating looking if you've never messed with scales like this before. And I'll show it to you here. You can check it out on the tab, on the what is it, chord diagram, scale diagram.
Scale diagram.
So, it's like the name implies, 3-note per string scales have 3 notes per string, and one big hang up a lot of people get when they're getting into this is like, how am I supposed to stretch my fingers that wide?
Yeah.
Right?
Especially down in the lower frets.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you're playing an F major scale, it'd be even worse.
Yikes.
But here, the thing is, and nobody told me this until, I think I was watching just an instructional video, I don't know, in like 2005 or something, and it said you don't have to leave your finger planted here. When you get the next note, you can let up on it, right? So you're not really stretching at all. And the same thing when you go to the next fret, you don't have to leave that finger planted or your index finger. A lot of people leave their index finger planted because it's easy to do this. But you don't have to do that. You can work up to that or not do it at all.
It almost is like a rolling motion.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot easier on your hand initially. But the first thing is just take notice of this, I keep wanting to call it chord diagram, the scale diagram, and notice how there are 3 notes on each string. On the first one, we're in a G major scale, so it's a 6-1 shape. That means your lowest root note is on the 6th string, and your index finger, your first finger, is playing that root note. So that's just a reference way of categorizing the scale. So the next 2 notes are skip a fret to the 5th fret with your 2nd finger, and skip a fret to the 7th fret with your pinky, your 4th finger. You know, some people play that with their 3rd finger. I can't do that.
Okay.
Not that high up, anyway. I can do it further up the neck, right? But whatever's more comfortable for you. But just realize there's 3 notes on each string. The next string is the exact same pattern. 1, 2, and 4 on frets 3, 5, and 7. And that's one big tip I have for you when you're memorizing scale patterns like this. Look for little recurring patterns that'll cut down on the memorization a lot. So instead of thinking, I have to memorize all 6 strings, so far you only have to memorize 1, and you're already up to the last note on the A string, right? So just think about that pattern and try to visualize it as you're doing this. And I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because then I'll get to the main point of 3-note per string scales, at least for this lesson. The next string over, you have 1, 2, and 4 on the 4th, 5th, and 7th strings. And the dark notes there, if you don't know what that is, those are just root notes. So every note that's filled in or black on this scale diagram, those are all G's, or root notes. So there's another G right there. And look at the next string over, it has the exact same pattern. So we've only learned 2 patterns so far, and we're covering, what was it, 4/6?
You're 2/3 of the way there.
And the last pattern that you have to memorize is on the high B and the high E strings, and it's just 1, 3, and 4, and 5, 7, 8, and then 5, 7, 8 again. And you may be thinking, oh, this is so much. I had a wrong note there. So much, how am I ever supposed to memorize this? And there are 7 modal or major scale shapes like this up and down the neck. So you have to memorize 7 of them, like the next one would be. The next one would be. And it could get really overwhelming really quickly, and you're like, man, this is too much work to memorize all this. But if you turn to the next page in the PDF, you're going to see 7 little mini scale shapes that are 6 notes long each. And this is all you need to know to cover a 3-note per string scale. All the notes on any key on the entire fretboard are these little 7 shapes. And when I first learned this, I had no idea what he was talking about, the person that was showing it to me. And he didn't tell me why I needed to learn them or how they're connected or how to use them. He just said, oh, you need to learn these fragments. It didn't tell me how many there were. And this, by the way, this only applies to major tonalities and all the modes that fit with them. Right. So irony, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, all those. If you want to get into harmonic minor or melodic minor, things change. But these little 7 mini shapes are all you need to know.
Okay.
For this.
Nice.
So let's bring it back to the first shape. And this is manageable. You can take like 1 shape a week and work on it. And it's just little different iterations and patterns that fit major keys. And the first one is just the first 6 notes of that G major scale that we went over. That's your first little scale shape that you need to know. So you can take that, maybe go 5 minutes of practice session for a week until you have it down really well. Even say the note names out loud or the numbers out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? And just work on getting that down. And these are all movable. If I wanted to find a G on my A string, I could play that exact same shape. Same thing if I wanted to find a G on my D string. Now, if I find a G on my G string up here on the 12th fret, it changes a little bit just because of the way the guitar is tuned, but if you compensate for that, it's the exact same pattern. And move up a half step. And if I find a G on my B string, same exact pattern. So you can move this around anywhere you find a G string. Just realize that the black note on this first pattern is where your first finger is playing, so that gives you kind of a clue as to where to locate this shape. Now, if we move up to the next note in a G scale and start a pattern there, that's going to give us our second shape. And the second pattern is this right here. We're going to move up to an A note, second note in the pattern. I'm not too concerned about, where this starts or what the second note of the G major scale is. Right now, I'll just worry about getting all the patterns. You can even do the patterns starting from the same note. Doesn't matter. For right now, just get the shapes down first. But I'm going to go through the key of G major just because for you intermediate players, this will give us an exercise at the end of this lesson. So if you start on A and look at the second pattern, you'll notice there's no black note on there. There's no root, right? Because we don't have a G. But the second pattern, and you can think of this globally, doesn't matter which fret you start on for now, just learn the patterns, is 1, 3, 4. In this case, it's on the 5th, 7th, and 8th frets. Okay? And then the next string over is just 1, 2, and 4 with a fret in between each note. So that's the second shape. So once you get the first one down, just commit this on a memory and get it into your fingers. It may take you a little while to get the coordination down. You can pick every note. You can do hammer-ons, pull-offs. But now we're going back down to that first pattern, and they're all connected. So the second note of the first pattern becomes the first note of the second pattern. So you see how they're all connected. And once you learn all 7 shapes and just realize that they're connected to each other, you just move up to the next note and play the next shape. The third shape is right here. So we go to the third note of the G scale, a B, and just memorize this pattern. It's 1, 2, and 4, and then 1, 3, and 4 on the next strings. And then you're not skipping any notes between these first two, any frets between these first 2 notes. So 7, 8, and 10. You have that skip there with your pinky. Next string over, 7, 9, and 10. So get to where you can visualize that pattern. Just memorize that little 6-note pattern. And you'll notice in this one that we do have a root note. This G creeps back up here. So that's a good reference point too. So it gets to where you don't even have to think about it. As long as you know the patterns, you're going to want to think about the notes and like scale degrees later on. But as far as the patterns, that's something that everybody can do. Just memorizing 7 little patterns.
Right.
The fourth pattern is right here. It starts off the same way as the first pattern. You have 1 fret in between each finger, and this is the 4th pattern. So we're going to start on the 4th scale degree of G major, G, A, B, C. So you have a fret in between each finger. And then you hop up there to the 9th fret with your first finger, and then you have 2 and 4. So 9, 10, 12. And if this is confusing for you, moving it around to the notes in each key, just stick to the G and play each pattern. So there's the first pattern, here's the second pattern. Just to get them down and get them on your fingers and get them memorized. But once you can, build the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Then put each of the 7 patterns with each of the 7 notes in the major scale. First pattern, G. Second pattern, A. Third pattern, B. 4th pattern, C. And we get lucky here because the 5th pattern is the exact same thing as the first pattern. So you really only have to memorize 6 patterns, which is fantastic. So you start on a D, 5th note of the G major scale, and play the exact same pattern.
Nice.
So 1 fret in between each finger, depending on where you start. Super easy. You just live there. Like one thing that really helped me is like once I had all the patterns, I was familiar with them, just take 2 and move between them. So first, second, do it again. And you can even come back down. But there's a million different exercises you can do this to make sure that you know these patterns as good as possible, right? So the 6th pattern is what you would think of typically as the beginning of a minor scale if you're familiar with that. If you go to the 6th note of a G major scale, an E, and here is the 6th pattern. And this one's really easy because this is the same on both strings. You get a little bonus here too. So first finger, 12th fret, third finger, 14th, pinky, 15th. And then you have the exact same thing on the next string over. So it's very symmetrical. It's great for working on picking too, or legato. And there's only 1 pattern left after this. I know I'm hitting this quick, but the idea is to realize that there are only 7 patterns, little mini patterns that you need to cover the entire fretboard. 7th pattern goes with the 7th note of the G major scale, F sharp. And this pattern is very symmetrical as well, so you get a little bonus here too. It's just 1, 2, 4 on the 14th, 15th, and 17th frets. I'm trying to keep this finger out of the way so you can see the pattern as much as possible. And notice the root note is on our 2nd finger right here. We're about to come back all the way around to this G. Right. I'll show you in a minute. Same thing. Oh, sorry about that. Same thing on the next string. 1, 2, and 4. All right. The guitar is a very geometrical, shape-driven instrument. This kind of just drives that home because if you go up 1 more half step to a G note, you're back where you started. Shape 1. Right. So you can go all the way back down. Shape 6, shape 5, shape 4, shape 3, shape 2, shape 1, and back to shape 7.
I noticed you have shape
shape
7.
Yeah. So if you know that information, you can understand it, get those little mini patterns down, put them together, realize which ones are connected. And that's after you get the individual shapes down, the next logical step is to connect them and realize which ones join together. So 1 and 2. Like when I learned these, they weren't in any kind of order. Like I didn't know you're supposed to connect them. I had no idea how you were supposed to implement them or use them. So it was really frustrating.
What makes them useful.
Yeah, I'm never gonna learn this. It's crazy. But like now, especially if you memorize where the root notes are. For example, if I'm on the 5th shape and on the 5th scale degree, I know this is a root note right there.
Right.
So I know I can start my root note on my 1st shape.
Absolutely.
And you start to just absorb where I know this is the 5th scale degree in the key of G major because the G's right here. It's really good. So that's how you break down, go to the first diagram of all the scales. That's one way to break down the notes in the key in any major key.
Right.
On the guitar.
Yeah, because if we were to do G sharp, we would just move everything up a little half step, but the
exactly.
shapes would stay the same.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even think about it. I would just be right. Yeah.
Because the shapes just don't change even when you change keys. That's the brilliant thing about guitar. Like I talk about this with my piano player friends. It's like you don't understand because they'll be, can we change the key? And it'll be like, sure, because it doesn't change anything for me. For you, you got to play different shapes.
Yeah. It's good to think about the notes, and eventually you will get to where you know that. But that's something I'm drilling all the time, trying to get better at. It's just actually memorizing the notes for every key. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Is that it?
Yeah, if you want to.
It's a lot of info. I'd say that's it. It's a lot.
Take just the first 2 little mini shapes right now, and work them. So go up the first 6 notes, then go to the next note on the scale, A, and go to the next 6 notes. And only that. Just do that over and over. See how they connect. Then what you do, just go to the 3rd note on the scale. And then a good thing to do is go up and back down. Oh, sorry about that. There you go. And then once you can do that, you're going to start to see how this G major scale shape. Well, I'm starting on the 4th note here. It's just shape 4. Totally. I'm starting on this note right here. It's just shape 7. I'm starting right here. It's just shape 6. So that means that's a 6th scale degree. I'm playing in E minor. So it's really convenient.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's very cool. It seems to just unlock pieces.
And so no matter where you are, like if I'm on a G right here. And soon your body will just start to intuitively know which pattern is next, and you can just move to it. Like I'm not to that point yet where I'm on full autopilot, but a lot of times I'll just be like, and like, oh, it just from muscle memory just fits in, which is really nice.
Totally. Okay, well, we have no questions yet, but I want to make sure you guys have an opportunity to get in questions if you do have them. If you want to ask about something that we talked about today, if you want to ask what Nate's favorite restaurant is, you can feel free.
It burned down. It's being rebuilt as we speak.
For real?
Yeah. You know, Lou's. I don't know if you know it.
I've never been there, and I didn't
really
know
good.
that was your favorite
It's
restaurant.
really good.
There you go. But yeah, feel free to send in questions. You can type them in the chat too. We'll we got time, so it's not a big deal. If you want to play us a ditty. was pretty good.
That was fun.
Pretty okay. Hey, so let's see if we have any more questions in here.
Well, I know. Let me see what else is going on in the community that you should know about. Oh, I don't know if I should say that yet. Maybe I'll just bait the conversation with a nice lure. I put it in the email for this week, so if you're a member, it will be coming to you in the email this week. It's gonna require some feedback from you, which is awesome, and it's a new feature for the site. So that's all I'm gonna say.
I don't even know
about
that. So, what do we have new as far as courses?
That's also the next thing. I can't tell you this because I've already told the world. The Caged 1 series is up, and a lot of people look at the Caged sequence or the Caged system of navigating the fretboard as like an alternative or contrary to the 3-note per string system, when I don't think it is at all. Like when I'm playing this scale shape, I see this shape and this shape all at the same time because they're connected. And the Cage system is like unfortunately it's viewed as a competing system for fretboard navigation, when I think they're tied in together. It just depends on what style of music you're playing as to which one you kind of emphasize and use at any particular given moment. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. You see so much debate between the 3-note per string. Oh, some people call it like the modal system, right? Is it the same thing? Okay. And then the Cage system. I don't think I use either.
I use both at the same time, so it depends just what's going on or what style of music I'm playing. So.
There's a fun one day Nate and I are gonna play this game that I love to do for like fretboard navigation and like knowing where you are by using your ears, which is basically you get someone to just play a random chord progression. You have to close your eyes. You can't even look at the fretboard. You can't look at your fretboard, and you just have to start playing and find where you are and improvise inside of that. It's a good little exercise. Joe Bonamassa does that kind of thing all the time.
It's a really good exercise.
Yeah. It's like it's intimidating though, because your first note that you hit might be wrong. It might be right. There's a 50-50 chance. And then at that point, you have to figure out where you are, and then you have to navigate your kind of way out of it.
Yeah,
it's pretty
for
fun.
sure.
We'll do it one time. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. If you guys do end up having questions, you can always shoot us an email. Be happy to answer them, post in the forums.
Yeah, let me form. I don't think I've started a 3-note per string thread in the forum, so I'll probably go do that tomorrow morning or right after this lesson.
Sounds cool. Okay, well, should we play out?
Yep.
Do you have something you want to play?
I don't. I gave all my ideas away just a second ago.
Okay, I'll do a little thing, and you can play over it.
Okay.